So number 1 says, what is the GCF, or greatest common factor, of 8 and 12? So remember, to figure out the GCF, you're going to figure out what are the factors of 8. So 8 would be 1, 2, 4, and 8. Factors of 12 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Largest number that occurs in both, is 4. For the following equation, what is the largest value of C that results in real roots? Understand the word real roots. Real roots means we have x-intercepts. So what could C be that results in real roots? So we're going to use the calculator to do this. Go up to y equals, type in 2x squared plus 6x. Now because we want to find the largest one that works, we're going to start with 7. Type in plus 7 and hit graph. Does this particular graph show that we have any x-intercepts? Are there any places in which the graph crosses the x-axis? Cross it out. Go to y equals, switch the 7 into now a 6. Graph it again. Does this provide us with x-intercepts? Okay, x-intercepts are real roots. Cross out 6. Go to y equals, switch the 6 to a 5 and graph. Okay, it's close, but do I have x-intercepts yet? Cross it out, go to y equals, switch the 5 into a 4, and it works. And if you're thinking, well, do I need to check 3? We're looking for the largest one that works. Correct answer is. There's different ways to go about doing number 3. This is considered the input, the x. The output is considered the y. We want to know which one of these equations is modeled by this data. So when you look at these numbers, what looks like the easiest pair? Negative 3, negative 11, negative 1, negative 5, 1, 1, or 3, 7. What looks like the easiest? Okay, so I'm going to choose 1. So if I plug in a 1, I want a final answer of 1. I'm just going to go 1 by 1. So if I plug in a 1 here, I end up with negative 3 times 1 plus 2. Well, that gives me an answer of negative 1. I want a positive 1. I plug in a 1, negative 2 times 1 plus 5. Oh, that gives me an answer of positive 3. I plug in a 1. 1 minus 11 is not a final outcome of 1. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 5 is not an outcome of 1. 3 times 1 is 1. Oh, sorry, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 2 is. So remember, with composite functions, we start from the inside and we work ourselves out. Now what makes this a little complicated is I'm going to start with 20 and I'm going to go to G, excuse me, but I'm not just going to G. Do you remember how this represents the inverse of G? So I go over to G, and this is what G is, but I need to find out its inverse. Inverse means we switch the x and y, and then we isolate the y. So y equals x over 4. This is the inverse of G. Well, why am I doing that? Because it says plug 20 into the inverse of G. Okay, so I come over here, I plug in 20. What's 20 divided by 4? So this part right here is 5. Now I take 5, and I plug 5 into F. You may be wondering, well, don't you have to do the inverse again? No, because there's no little inverse, negative 1. Plug 5 in. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is. So prime factorization. I want to first talk about what is prime factorization before we even add an even in here. So here's what prime factorization is. If I do, I'm going to do 32. So I start with 32. I'm just giving an example here. So 2 times 16 is 32. Well, 16 breaks into 2 times 8. 8 breaks into 2 times 4. 4 breaks into 2 times 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Prime factorization, right? Oh, it's ugly. So watch this. So I'm going to start off with 1020. And grab that calculator for me. Divide it by 2. What do you end up with? With 510, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so 510. Yeah, let's try divide it by 2. Ready? Divide it by 2. We end up with, so this is 2, and now we have 2 times 255. Now, what number do you know goes into 255? 5. So divide it by 5. So now I have, this breaks into 5 times 51, and 51, if you don't know, breaks into, divided by 3. 51 breaks into 3 and 17. So this is the same as 2 times 2 times, I'm going to put them in order, like order of numerical value. So 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 17. Okay, so I'm going to do the same over here for 1530. Please divide it by 2 for me. Take 1530 and divide it by 2. Please tell me the number. Don't get lazy. What is it?
765.
Thank you. Divide this number by 5 for me, please.
153.
153? Can you check if 153 is divisible by 3?
Yes.
And what is it? What does it go to? 3 times what?
51.
3 times 51, and we already know 51 over here is what? 3 times 17. So this is 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 17. So here's this one, and here's this one. And now what does the question say? So at the greatest prime factor, what is the largest even number? So what's the largest even number here and here?
2.
Done. We're talking about relative mass, and it says the relative mass of Mars is this particular value. The relative mass of Jupiter is this particular value, and it says how much larger is Jupiter. So we're going to take Jupiter and subtract Mars. So I'm going to Jupiter, and if you forgot how this works, this when it's positive means move the decimal this way, in this case 2 places. 1, 2. So I'm going to take 317 and subtract, because how much larger is it? And then I go to Mars, and because this value in here in scientific notation is negative, I move to the left. So I'm going to subtract them just like this. 317, subtract 0.107, and this is what I have. Now, if I was going to look at the multiple choices, and if we had them there correctly, you're going to notice it puts it back into scientific notation. That means we want one value other than 0 in front of the decimal. So 3.16893 times, okay, I moved it 2 places, remember? So if I had to take this and write it like this, would this be a positive or negative 2? It would be a positive 2. This would be my answer. If we have 2 particular lines, I'm going to call this line 1. And I'm going to call this line 2. And here's what we know. If line 1, so I'm going to make this, if line 1 crosses the y-axis below line 2. So here's line 1, okay? That's line 1. And here's line 2. Okay? It says nothing about their slope, so I don't have to worry about the A and the C. But let's look at the starting point. That would be, so y equals mx plus b. It's this value. What could you tell me about this value compared to this value? Is it higher or lower? It's lower because it crosses below. It says this line crosses below the y-axis compared to this. Below the y-axis. So it's below it on the y-axis. So this value has to be lower than this value. So I'm going to come up to equation 1 and go, okay, that means b has to be less than d. In this last one, we're talking about a system of equations. And the first part says, let's talk about how many classes you have to take. So you have to take 4 art classes. A equals the number of art classes, okay? So take 4 art classes, I've got it. And I'm taking 1 science class. And then it tells you how much they are worth. So take a second, look through that, see what you think about it. I know that art classes plus science classes, I know I'm taking a total of 4. Art plus science, I'm taking a total of 4. Now, how much is each art class worth? Each art class is worth how many points? 3. Each science class is worth how many points? And how many credits did I take altogether? 13. Correct answer is H.